Inshallah, we will continue reading from the Supreme Sign, also Ayatul Kubra. We read the 11th degree last week, but I think some people probably felt that it was left incomplete, right? So we can continue, maybe just give it another read and continue talking about it, discussing it, and depending on how we feel fulfilled about the questions or topics at hand, we can proceed from there. So, what I'll do is, I think I will reread it quickly, and then I will ask those, especially those I know who have reviewed last week's halaqah, to offer a wonderful summary and invite others to share comments that they have in mind. But just to refresh ourselves, I think maybe it's not very long anyway. Yeah, I think I'll just read it very quickly. So the section started with Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Now our traveler. So again, if you weren't here in previous weeks, we're following the journey of a traveler who is in dialogue with creation, with the world around himself to find his creator, right? And that traveler has looked to different spheres of existence, the clouds, the trees, the plants, human beings, prophets, scholars, right? And here in the portion that we're going to read, focuses especially on creation or the life and creation that must exist in what he calls the heavens. But let me just read it. So now our traveler through the world, aware that the most important and greatest of all human perfections, indeed the very source and origin of all such perfections, is the love of God that arises from belief in God and the knowledge of God, wished with all of his powers, outer and inner, to advance still farther in the strengthening of his faith and the development of his knowledge. He therefore raised his head and gazing at the heavens said to himself, the most precious thing in the universe is life, all things made subordinate to life. The most precious of all living beings is the animate, and the most precious of the animate is the conscious. Each century and each year the globe is engaged in emptying and refilling itself in order to augment this most precious substance. It follows then, without doubt, that the magnificent and ornate heavens must have appropriate people and inhabitants possessing life, spirit, and consciousness. For events relating to seeing and speaking with the angels, such as the appearance of Gabriel, peace be upon him, in the presence of Muhammad, peace be and blessings be upon him, and in the view of the companions, have been transmitted and related from the most ancient times. Would then that I could converse with the inhabitants of the heavens and learn their thoughts on this matter, for their words concerning the creator of the cosmos are the most important. As he was thus thinking to himself, he suddenly heard a heavenly voice. If you wish to meet us and hear and hearken to our lesson, then know that before all others we have believed in the articles of faith brought by means of us to the prophets, headed by the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, who brought the Quran of miraculous exposition. Then too, all of the pure spirits from among us that have appeared before men have unanimously and without exception borne witness to the necessary existence, the unity, and the sacred attributes of the creator of this cosmos, and proclaim this with one accord. The affinity and mutual correspondence of these countless proclamations is a guide for you as bright as the sun. Thus the traveler's light of faith shone and rose from the earth to the heavens. In brief allusion to the lesson learned by the traveler from the angels, we said in the 11th degree of the first station, there is no God but God, to whose necessary existence in unity points the unanimity of the angels that appear to human gaze and who speak to the elect among men with their mutually corresponding and conforming messages. So we had a lot going on in this passage, right? Starting with discussing what is the source of all such perfections, right? Of human perfection being love of God, coming from belief in God, from knowledge of God, right? Um, and but we didn't talk too much about perhaps angels. But before I say anything else, would anyone like to offer any sort of what they took away or what they remember from last week's discussion so that we can further prepare our minds? Is that a hand? All right.
Assalamu alaikum. I guess I can sort of summarize what I've taken from last week and maybe like put it into context of what we've been discussing so far. So it seems like we've been on this journey with the traveler to go through different parts of the creation and sort of read how these different creations from like the mountains, rivers, animals, plants are all manifesting different names of the creator. And through this creation, we're able to sort of get to know the creator through these different names. And so like maybe through like food, we're able to get to know the one who's sustaining us, for example. And then, like, as the traveler goes through this journey of interacting with the creation, the traveler then sort of wants to know more, wants to know how to live with this like knowledge of the creator, like how do I implement it into my life? And so we then entered the classroom of the prominent scholars and saints among among sort of the people we've met among humanity. And through them, we like learned how to, I guess, practice this knowledge of God in our lives. And from there, I think now sort of like using that knowledge of God, I should be able to live with this awareness or consciousness of God. So I take love of God to mean more so living in the presence of God, essentially. So I think one thing that was kind of, we were talking a lot about love in like the sense of maybe how we love things in this existence, like maybe our friends and family, and that sort of like attraction or just, I don't know. I think it's like hard to describe love of God in a similar way because God is unlike anything in the creation. So I liked the idea that, you know, living with love of God means more so living with this consciousness of God in like my day-to-day actions, and then sort of connecting it to maybe the angels coming up in this section, like wanting to find these beings who are also living with this consciousness of God and interacting with them to know more. So that's what I have taken so far.
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you for that beautiful uh summary and sort of synthesis of discussion. Any other comments or thoughts anyone wants to share from last week or the previous weeks? Okay, then if not, then maybe we can pass this first paragraph if we feel we've sufficiently discussed it and talk about yeah, I mean if people would like to, we can talk about angels, the existence of angels, and also how, as the text says, the most precious thing in the universe is life, right? And can we confirm this? How does this relate to this larger journey that the traveler is making here? Um, or any other part of this passage that you might have questions on? Yeah, Brother Yusuf.
at the end of the first paragraph. So there was this sentence after he mentioning, saying that the best of the perfection for human being is love of God, but then he said love of God is a result of knowledge of God, belief in God, and knowledge of God. And he ended the paragraph by saying, to advance still further in the strengthening of his faith and development of his knowledge. Like the traveler is focusing on belief in God and knowledge of God, because love of God is a result of these two. So this is what he is focusing on. He's not focusing on love of God, because love of God is an outcome. So once I get to strengthen belief in God, and it looks like it's possible to strengthen that belief, it's not a 0 or 1. So it looks like there is levels in this iman. And then the knowledge of God, as we were, I guess this is pretty much what last week's discussion was all about. But so from this, I am taking that as if the author is saying that you, or reader, should also focus on strengthening your iman and getting to know better your maker, your creator. So this should be purpose of your life. As much as this keeps happening, then the outcomes will start happening in your life. Generally, we are outcome oriented, and we are trying to do the outcome first, but it feels like trying to make a building without putting the first level, second level, third level. We are interested in having the site of the 10th level, but you first need to build up the building to get to the 10th level. So it's the site at the 10th level is going to be an outcome, but you need to build it up first. So this is why the author is saying that don't take it for granted. You will need to build this building.
Sakala, and I recall a comment from last week towards the end where someone had said, like, love of God almost feels like a gift, right? Not something that you can sort of be like, okay, I'm going to love God. But it, as with all things in our life, right? The more we come to study something, the more we come to know about it, the more our conviction grows in it. That love then is given, right, and experienced. So as Brother Yusuf was saying, what is within the domain of what I can choose to do is to choose to see how can I strengthen this belief, this iman, right? And further my knowledge and hence connection with my creator. So how do we then make the connection from that, right? Because the text here transitions from talking about that to now the traveler is gazing at the heavens and talking about how life is the most precious thing, and the most precious thing among living beings is that which is animate, and that amongst that which is animate is that which is conscious, and leading us to this topic of angels. So how do we make that transition point, let's say, or why is the author drawing our attention to the existence of angels when talking about strengthening one's belief? And when we look at like the articles of belief, like belief in angels is up there, right? But it oftentimes feels very distant to just the reality of how I might live my life, or just kind of part of that larger it's part of the landscape, but yeah, like I'm still living my life. I don't know if angels have a particular impact on it. So how do we then try to understand this conception or the existence of angels such that belief in it has truly an impact into how I experience my day-to-day life, and how I experience even my my belief in the creator as well. Any thoughts?
Just to raise some points, I guess, so someone else can jump in later. But I mean, the first question before I even get there, this idea of love of God, I agree to some degree that, okay, it's a gift, it's an endpoint. It's not what you strive for. It's like a hard thing to grasp. It's abstract. But at the same time, I feel like, are we being honest or am I being honest? Like we're not zombies. Like, you know, we go through our day-to-day life. Like, you looked at me, am I a zombie? Questioning me. But I mean, like, we go through our day-to-day life with a lot of emotions. Like, we're not just like dead. We have frustrations, we have anger, we love things, we hate things. But then when it comes to God, it's like, oh, what does it even mean to love? Or actually hate God is maybe even not a hard thing, because I would say there's a lot of things that you'd be like, oh, I hate God for this, or people might say that. Like, it seems an easy thing, but when it comes to loving or this other feeling, like, I feel like we're humans and we live through so many experiences and emotions, but then when we put this word God, it becomes abstract, or it's hard to understand, or it becomes this end goal. But daily I'm living those emotions, I'm living those feelings. Like, obviously I feel something, and I think that's why it's important here where he goes to the presence of God, or the knowledge and belief in God, because if there's no God in your life, then you won't even love this thing that you don't know, or you'll just say, yeah, I love God, and you don't know what God is, so it's just empty. And then in that case, yes, it would be empty. So I don't think the issue is loving. It's the issue is, I guess, coming back to the point, it's just there is no God in my life. There is no presence of God in my life. If I was able to see that presence, then because I'm such an emotional creature anyways, then I would feel love, or I would feel hate, or I would feel something, like if I felt that presence in my life. And I think there, like, I found it interesting that the traveler then says, let me look up and see what the heavens want to say. Now he's like, how can I increase this presence in my life? Or how can I increase, you know, day to day I'm living life, but how can I now find God in those things? Or how can I find, because he realizes, you know, I see that the most perfect thing is love of God. Maybe he experienced it at something, one point. He sees that that's really where the fruit of it all is. So he's like, how can I experience this more? Then he's like, how can I now turn everything around me into, or how can I hear the things around me speaking of this one? You know, and he says, like, what do the heavens have to say to me? And here it goes to the angels, because like there's narrations of angels, and there's claims of angels, and then but some, here the angels, like, I found interesting is, like, if you want to hear us, like, the first thing is know that we are the ones who first bear witness to the articles of faith, to like these truths of faith, you know, God, the angels, the books, the prophets, and then also the necessity of God. You know, all of these things, they said the angels were the first ones to bear witness to that. And you know, if I'm searching for God, if I'm searching for his presence in my life, I'm searching for, how do I read my work, my frustrations, this event in my life, like, how do I read, what are these telling me? What are the angels in this telling me? How do I read an emotion? Like, what's the angel of this emotion, for example? Like, what's it telling me? Because if I can read it as an angel, then this angel will tell me about God. So it's about, I guess, transforming everything around me, all my feelings, into rather seeing them as angels or messengers. What are they telling me? And then this will be the path to turning all those emotions and feelings I have to realizing like the presence of God in them, and then, you know, going to this concept of love of God. But just like for myself, just to end it here, like, I think it's easy to say, yeah, love of God, it's abstract, it's not really easy. But I also think, like, you know, you're a human, you feel so many emotions, but then how come it becomes void or black, or you hit a wall whenever there's this concept of your creator, for example, comes to it? It shouldn't be that way, it seems like.
Jazakallah khair. Yeah, I think as you're saying, like, we can experience emotions vividly when we feel that the presence of something in our life, right? Like, I like this apple, I don't like this apple, but the apple's there. I experience the presence of it in some sense, or, you know, the child or the weather or whatever. So the question then comes down to, how can I experience the presence of my creator in my day-to-day life, such that I can one, I mean, have that belief, strengthen that belief, come to know him, and thus then experience also these emotions of love, or of gratitude, or of other states of beings as well. And yeah, I think as you said here, the text is pointing us to the idea that angels in this sense is key to connecting me to my creator through the things that I interact with, right? That they are this sort of, they unlock something there that I need to pay attention to. Yeah. Any comments? Oh yeah.
Just one update with the translation here, since I think it might be important. So the paragraph started by saying the most precious thing in the universe is life. All things are made subordinate to life. The most precious of all living beings is the animate. So the animate in here might sound a little weird. Author in here means zero, meaning those with spirit, those with ruh. So he first starts with life and those with ruh. And then he says, and the most precious of the ruh is the conscious. Then talks about shu'ur. So these three things he talked about: life, spirit, and consciousness. So if we would like to make a distinction, because the word animate didn't ring any bells to me, so just wanted to highlight that. And maybe I can then ask also a question. Do you agree with that statement? Like, is the life most important thing? And then those with ruh, spirits, and then consciousness, because it looks like he's building the argument on top of these three basic statements. So are we on the same page with the author on that?
Do you like life, Dua? Things that have life? Zaha, you?
So a similar concept came up for me when I was looking into like research that involved animals, and a discussion I had with someone reminded me how so he was mentioning if we saw like a cat or a bird that, like dead on the roadside, for example, we wouldn't stop our car or call 911 and try to get help or try to bury like whether that's the right thing to do or not. Generally, the kind of reaction we have to that is very different from if we saw a person struggling, right? So this was to say we have this we have kind of like a response to a different response to seeing a human struggle versus a bird or an animal. So even there, we are seeing this distinction that we're not really treating everything animate or with the ruh the same. So I think that's similar to what the kind of levels that the author is talking about. Even we can observe that in our own reaction to what we see in the world.
Jazakallah khair. Yeah, I think, our human responses, as you say, I think that's a very important point, reveal a lot about what we do find precious, right? Like, when I was on campus yesterday, and there's lots of beautiful trees and rocks and foliage, right? But then suddenly, like, we saw a fox, and it was just walking, and people saw it and were very nonchalant about it. And I'm like, are we seeing the same thing? It's a fox. Like, look, it's so exciting, right? So something, that rock, that tree certainly has life in one sense, in one respect, right? But then there's also this fox that is life of a different kind, right? And at least for me, it elicited a kind of excitement, right? Because you want to interact with it, or you want to say like, hey, like I told the people next to me, I'm like, look, you're not looking. So things that we find valuable, right? And even like, if like you have a cat and it gives birth to kittens, right? Or, the birth of a human baby, we find that so precious, so amazing. So our very reactions and responses to creation around us also shows the sort of value that we put or we place in regards to them. It is, I think, difficult, like for me, in understanding here, how I can differentiate between that which has ruh or that which has consciousness alongside it, right? Like I feel like that goes into sort of technicalities of discussions that go beyond me in one sense. But certainly I can say for things that I know that do have ruh, right? Like babies, yeah, I'm like, yeah, it's amazing, and if let's say the cat has a ruh but not the conscious, but it does. So it's hard to discuss it on a more technical level, I'd say. But regardless of that hierarchy, exactly, I can say yes, things with life, things with spirit, things with consciousness, these are valuable, and I want these in my life. I want to interact with them in my life, in fact, right? Because they showcase to me qualities that I find in myself as well, and qualities that I want to be in communication with, right? That time me, okay, like tell me more about who is the one that is giving this to you, who is the one that is creating this. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
If no one's talking, so since author is going to start from what is known to us, then we'll apply it to the unknown. So for us, I guess when we look at a stone, I feel like, yes, stone doesn't have a life. Then when I see a plant, I guess this is where I would say this is where life starts, the plants. And then I see an animal. Yeah, the animal's life is different than plant's life. So I say, yeah, this life is more complex. This is where we start maybe coming up with spirit, we say, because I guess by spirit in this case, probably what we mean is a more comprehensive interaction with the environment than a plant. But of course, within animals, there are varying degrees. Like, yeah, and I don't know, a single cell is an animal, but also a fish is an animal, a dog is an animal, a monkey is an animal. So what's the distinction? All of them have a spirit, but definitely they are different. So their consciousness is changing, their awareness is changing. Like if you have a fish tank in your house, I mean, yeah, fish is interacting with you to a small degree. But if you have a dog in your house, or if you have a monkey or whatever, you see that the level of interaction, like the animal is being more responsive, more receptive to what you're doing. So on the surface, I can relate to these distinctions. Then comes to myself. And I can feel like I have moments in my life where I want to close myself to home and I live as if in a vegetative state. And then sometimes I just break this mood and go out, like not being a little bit not lazy and whatnot. I go out and I start refreshed because now I'm interacting with the sun and the breeze of the spring and whatnot. So I start getting energized. Why? Because now I'm interacting with the existence more. So I am becoming conscious of them more. So I feel like even within myself, I can sense these different levels of consciousness happening in me. Now the author is saying that, look, this is the most valuable, precious thing in your life. In you as a being, you have a life, you have the spirit, which makes you relatable with everything else. Because a stone by itself, if you put a stone somewhere, it only interacts with the things that touches it. Otherwise, stone stays there, at least on the surface. But if it is a, living being, then it starts interacting with the whole universe. It breathes air, it sees the sunlight, like it interacts with the whole existence once the life starts coming in. And with the consciousness, it's a back and forth communication now, because it understands something and responds back. So now, this being the case, author says, well, this only applies to the extent that I know about. This only applies to this globe of Earth. In here, we do see a lot of life. We do see a lot of spirit. We do see a lot of conscious beings. How about Mars? How about Jupiter? How about Moon? How about Sun? How about those heavenly bodies? Are they void of life? Is author's question here. Because now I need to re-question, if life is so precious to me, and with life actually, now we are at what, level 11. So through my life and consciousness, I get to know my maker. So it looks like my maker wants to be known, and with life and consciousness, I tend to get to know him. How about the rest of this universe? Is it just empty? Like, as if the universe is a huge palace, Earth is just one room in it, and this room is very beautifully furnished, and we are invited to observe this universe, this room. How about the rest of the rooms in this palace? Like, so many ornaments in the other sides of the palace as well, but is it all empty? Like, and we are not going there, we are not observing it. So what's the point of making them in the first place? So the author is questioning, shouldn't there be some life, spirit, and conscious beings who are living in those heavenly bodies? This is where the conversation is going, if that makes sense.
Is the author saying that he's making this deduction after believing in a maker? Because if there is no maker, then this deduction wouldn't make much sense, right? So yes to the first question.
So, I mean, along with what Brother Yusuf will say, like, this is the 11th degree, right? So we're starting with the traveler questioning the universe in search of his creator. So he's come to a point where he has deduced that, okay, there must be a creator. Really,
exactly, that's what I was going to say. So we are at level 11. So, and to everything, because even when the journey started, the person is seeking for a maker, and then asking to things, tell me about my maker. Like Ibrahim Al-Sam did. He was looking for a maker. He doesn't know who that maker is. So then asking the question. So this is why the belief in here is not built upon belief in Allah. And I specifically use the word Allah here as the proper name. But this is being built on top of the fact that using your humanity, you just say that, well, I am being made and I don't make myself. I must have a maker. Who is my maker? And then I go and see, oh, Mustafa also has a maker. And it looks like same one made both of us. I go and ask him, tell me about my maker. So this idea of huwa is ingrained in human being. There must exist a he, a creator. This is why when Surah Ikhlas starts by saying, Qul huwa Allahu ahad. So say he is ahad, as if creator saying that you are already seeking for a he, so let me start telling you who he is. So the idea of there must exist someone is already hardly ingrained in human being anyways.
So I think it's also more than just knowing that or accepting that there must be a maker. Otherwise, like, just because you say that there's a maker, then somebody must know him and so on, so it wouldn't hold. So if we go at the beginning of the text, it's kind of saying that we started with Iman billah, the belief in God, and the Iman, right, of God. So you are looking at the creation and saying that there must be someone behind all these. There must be a maker, there must be a creator, there must be a shaper, there must be a whatever. Everywhere you look, every quality you see, you say there must be. So this is belief in God, the must. And then comes Marifatullah. So I have a problem with the word, the knowledge there. It's probably because of my English.
Experience.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point I want to come. Yeah. So when we say know God, it's as if, you read it from somewhere and you learn about God. But when we, at least within this context, like I'm not saying that in Arabic, Marifatullah means that. Like I'm just saying that in this context, what I understand from knowing God is being acquainted with God. So you know your mom, for instance, right? It's not that you read about your mom, you saw a picture of your mom and so on and so forth, or you made some measurements of her. Bad. You shouldn't do that. So you are acquainted with your mom the same way you are acquainted. You have this experience, like as if you spent time. Hence comes the presence, right? In the love of God. So in such a state, now everywhere you look, you see nothing but the indication of the Creator, of Allah, of God. You say, my God, my Maker is the one who creates these beautiful children, right? Who creates this, who gives me this, and so on and so forth. You have this lively relationship with God. And then as you leave this relationship, have a two-way communication, two-way connection. Now we are talking about the love of God, right? Being in the constant presence of God and enjoying this. So when you are in such a state, nothing makes sense anymore other than, the Creator. Because your entire life, yourself and so on, is nothing but his artwork. And you're just experiencing this. That's the only thing that you value. And you say that in this life, as I experience, only precious thing is having such a relationship with the God. This is the most the precious things in the creation, in the life, in my life, right? That's the conclusion you arrived so far. That's the most precious things. So the reason I'm highlighting this, the next paragraph, when we read about the author says the most precious things in life is in universe, in the creation is life. So we can read it as, to me, the most precious thing is life because I like lively things. We can read it this way, but it may, help us to understand, like, yes, these, the liking lively things given to us. So it shows something. We can use it as an evidence. But when author says the most precious things in creation, in universe is life, I think he's referring to his conclusion in the previous, the paragraph, where he says the only precious things in this the creation is being in the presence of God, knowing Him, believing in Him, and so on and so forth. Within these framework now, like from this perspective now, the living things are more precious than non-living things because their relationship with the Creator is, let's say, the more, how would you say, richer. Okay? And then the same way, the Ziruh ones, the animate ones, the ones with the spirit, are more precious because they have richer relationship with the God. And then the conscious one, they even richer because they are aware of the qualities they also declare. And when we look at the fish, for instance, the fish declares some qualities. From my perspective as well, I have a relationship with my God through fish. But when the creation is also conscious, it is aware of the qualities that he's declaring as well. He's also enjoying these qualities that his creator gives him, like they manifest on him, sorry. So in that perspective, I guess it's becoming more and more and more precious. Again, it's not wrong to say that, okay, when I see a lively thing, I give more value than a rock. Yes, it's an indication of this truth. Why do you give more value to a living being than a rock? If you ask this question, you cannot answer that, probably. But the author is giving an answer now. He says, you give this value because the living thing is more precious in terms of with respect to the connection with the God. And this is reflected in you as such a feeling. And when you take it that way, you say, okay, since in this creation, the most important thing, only important thing is knowing God, like believing in God, knowing God, being in the presence of God, being conscious of God, and so on. If this is the case, which I experienced, this is the truth, I say, then everywhere I look, I should see the same thing. Otherwise, everything else would be valueless. Like they are being created, but they don't fulfill anything. The only purpose of the creation is knowing God and so on. But when I look at, deep of the ocean or any tree or Mars, wherever you look, it looks like they don't fulfill any, the duty that they own, like the matter own. Sorry. They were made. Yeah, they are made for, or the only duty that matters. Right? Hence, there must be this, the Zishur, or the conscious beings everywhere. Otherwise, everything would be valueless. That's how I see.
Jazakallah khair. So I want to also draw our attention to Abdurrahman mentioned at one point, right, that when the traveler is speaking with the angels, they say, if you wish to meet us and hearken to our lesson, then know that before all others, we have believed in the articles of faith brought to us by the prophets, headed by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who brought the Quran. And then it says, then to all the pure spirits from among us that have appeared before men have unanimously and without exception borne witness to the necessary existence, the unity, and the sacred attributes of the creator of this cosmos. So I felt like that line there was also important in that when I interact with the world, when I experience the world, what is bearing witness to the necessary existence, the unity, the qualities of the creator of this world, right? And like, to me, in short, it's everything. Everything bears witness to varying degrees, but everything bears witness, right? Like the baby, the child definitely bears witness, as does the pebble, as does the existence of a certain emotion, right? So that all things in creation are constantly pointing me to the necessity of my creator, right? As well as the specific manifestations of his qualities, right? And I think one valuable implication of that is that means any moment, any interaction I have in this life is extremely valuable, right? There's no mundane, there's no dismissive, like, I just had a dull day or something. No, that dullness, the emotions I experience with that, like all of it is angelic, we can say, right? because it bears witness to who my creator is, who is creating that for me, and whatnot. Any other thoughts on this? Are we what's the word? I mean, it doesn't matter if we're satisfied if we're not geared up. Like, I'm trying to take the temperature of the room and like, do we feel the stakes? Or is it like, oh, this is nice, but the fruits after are nicer? So what is at stake for us? Or do we feel any stakes? And if it's not this, what do we feel is at stake such that we can show the connection of this to whatever you feel is at stake? Brother Yusuf, we've heard you. So I'm going to give you the mic again, but I want to push people a bit to say something. Sarah, you've been taking diligent notes. So let's hear you so that others can be awakened by your voice and hearken to the speech of the angels.
Can you ask me a specific question? I'm not really good with open-ended questions.
Yeah, this job of the moderator. I have to give guided questions. What is this? No, I guess, all right, let's ask this, like, does the existence of angels, what is at stakes? Whether you accept their existence or not.
Being a believer or not?
But how does it, okay, you're a believer. How does it change your life? Does it?
I would say yeah.
Okay. So we're doing a dialogue. Okay. I can't unmute myself. Okay, how does it change your life, let's say? We're just trying to get a discussion going.
Yeah, no, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I guess knowing how they could be impacting my day-to-day life. Well, first of all, knowing that they're a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, I think, a big thing on its own.
Mhm.
And that this, at least in my perception, their work is in coexistence with everything else that's happening in my existence.
Do you witness their existence?
Now
I gotta be tech support too.
do I witness
Okay.
their existence?
Yeah.
I guess only in the ways that I've been told that they are working. Like,
Hmm.
for example, I've been told when there's a gathering, there's angels that are like blessing the space. When someone is dying, there's angels that's doing that.
Yeah.
So like the actions that are happening in people's lives are being done by angels, by by Allah's command. So in that sense, is how I make sense of it.
Right. So we have these valuable narrations, right?
Right.
That offer us insight into, okay, oh, like every raindrop is carried down by an angel, right? Or angels gathering these heads. But how can now we're approaching from the perspective of this traveler, right? Who is not even, let's say, speaking as Brother Yusuf was saying about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? But about this maker who he is learning about, interacting with through creation, through experience, right? Through the prophetic message as well, through the scholars, we've gone through those stages. So how do I then understand those narrations in such a way that my belief in my creator is strengthened, or that I can see how angels bear witness to the necessity of the creator? Right. And I guess this is like the question that I kind of want to bring it to. I mean, I don't know. That's probably maybe not the trajectory that others were taking it to. But what does it mean for, so the angels here say that, we all are born witness to the necessary existence, the unity, the quality, the sacred attributes of the creator. Right. So then, to my understanding, at least, that means that what does it mean, Abdurrahman? And then we'll pass it to Brother Yusuf. But this was good. This was good.
Yeah. I work best this way.
So I will say where mine was. I was thinking of the moon, like, because we were talking about Mars and space. And first, I think before we're in angels, like the way Nursi is approaching it, he doesn't even jump to angels. He says, okay, is there life in the heavens? I think heavens could be understood in other ways, but one way is just like, let me look at the sky, not just Earth, but now because Earth has life. Let's say like, let's say Mars, these other planets, the moon, this rock. The moon is just like a bare rock. I'm like, do I see anything there? Do I expect consciousness there? Do I expect life there? If, as Brother Rikhan said, like life is this precious thing, but what makes it precious is consciousness of God or realizing God. And it's like now there's this moon up there. It's like, and then there's even things past the moon. So I was just thinking there, like, do I see anything there? Do I expect anything there? And I was saying, how can I confirm that there isn't something speaking back to me? Because let's say there's even life on Mars or Jupiter or whatever, but I can't converse with it. Like I can't even talk with it. Like here in Nursi saying something I could talk to, communicate with, have a conversation with. So it doesn't matter if there's like literally physical life aliens there. It matters more like, am I able to converse with it? And the only way I can see like the practical example, I look at a moon, the first thing I see is beauty, like the full moon shining. I see something that's giving light. I see something that's giving a lot of peace. I find a lot of peace in there. Maybe I find like somewhere like refuge. It's a light in the darkness. It's a peaceful light. So I'm thinking, how does these emotions turn into now me having an interaction with a conscious being? And I guess the moon could be, I could like kind of flip the perspective and say the moon is speaking to me about one that's making it beautiful. It's speaking to me about one that is making it peaceful. It is reflecting these feelings of peace and beauty and light. And in some sense, it's speaking to me of someone. I could look at the moon and say, no, it's just by itself, that it's just by its own power, it's doing this. And then with the science that we have right now, anyways, we don't think of the moon that way. It's just a dead rock. Like that's all we look at. It's just a dead rock. All those feelings, emotions, we just kill them. But if I see it as, oh, it's actually conveying these feelings to me, and by conveying them, it's now acting as like a conscious, let's say, angel. Now we can use the word angel, or let's say this is what an angel means. And then now I can sort of come to how it jumps to Gabriel, like, because it just jumps to how Gabriel came to the prophet and how some of the other companions saw these angels. Like now I can like, oh, now I can understand what it might mean to interact with an angel. Because like in a very low degree with the moon, maybe I'm able to do this, or with the space or other places. And then what's at stake? You kind of asked this question. And I think Nursi says something very interesting. He says, for their words concerning the creator of the cosmos are the most important. Like he doesn't say it would be nice to talk with him. He says, whatever these angels or whatever these conscious beings say, whatever their words are the most important of the creator, which actually is kind of interesting to me, or kind of surprised me. It's like, well, we just talked about the prophets, we talked about the scholars, we talked about the saints, all these lines, and now you're saying these conscious beings, their words are the most important of the creator. So like apparently everything is at stake. Whatever value the prophets and scholars and saints have, Nursi is putting them. This is the 11th degree. It's a degree after. It's like even higher than that. This is more important. Maybe for my personal life, this is now the next level. Yeah, I think a lot is at stake, and I'm just in that. I'll open the floor for others to talk further. How do I go from, I guess, even looking at a moon, seeing the consciousness there, or looking at everything else, and then now my personal life, hearing these conscious beings talking to me about a creator, and everything's at stake, or hearing like somehow, how am I going to hear these conscious beings talking about their creator?
How can I witness their existence in a gathering?
Yeah, apparently there are narrations when you sit in a gathering, thousands of angels come and form around you. Now I can look at that narration, like, what is it talking about? Thousands of angels coming down and forming a circle around you. How can I understand that?
How can you?
I'll open the floor.
Brother Yusuf, you had a question. Do you want to say something? What's the other mic? Oh, okay.
I didn't understand much what Brother Abdurrahman said because I thought from what Brother Burkhan said is that, and what we're discussing, that the most important precious or the most precious thing is life, and then in life there's the animate, the ruh, as we said, and then the among them, like the ones with the ruh, the even more precious ones are the ones with conscience. And then I thought the ones with conscience are supposed to be human beings, but am I getting something wrong there? And then we are the most, or human beings with conscience and ruh are the most precious because they have this, what Brother Burkhan said, the rich relationship with God, because they can experience the qualities and divine names of their creator through interacting with the animate and the non-animate being. And then Brother Abdurrahman said that he's talking to the moon, not the song, they're talking to the moon. And he's the moon now became, because he got all these feelings, he can see now the moon as a conscious angelic being talking to him. But then it kind of contradicts what we were saying before, that this is a non-animate being that is not like the most precious thing. And I still I don't know what's at stake if you don't believe in angels. I still don't know the question to that. Like, why do I need the angels if Allah can be my witness directly? Like, Allah can see my interaction, and like he's creating these feelings in me, and he can see how I'm interacting with the other creations. So why do I need the angels to bear witness to that? So I don't know the answer to that question yet, but I'm just trying to understand, what are we considering animate and non-animate, and what's really angelic here?
So I think there's no contradiction, but I would suggest taking it step by step. This is why I think it's getting a little mixed up. So initially, as a human being, I think that stones are unconscious, like stone. And then I say, yes, plants are alive, but unconscious. They don't even have spirit, I think. Then I see animals, but then fish versus dog is different. So I know the distinction in consciousness and whatnot. And then still, I don't share my secrets with my dog, but rather I share my secrets with my human fellow. So there's this difference. This variation makes me appreciate more the value of life, spirit, and then consciousness. Then as I keep focusing on this, I get to sense the importance of consciousness, saying that with this consciousness, I get to know my maker. And with conscious beings, I start having this conversation. And which conversation matters? As was mentioned at the intro, the conversation that matters is belief in God and knowledge of God, which takes me to love of God. This is what matters. Then the author says, well, this being said, let's look at the heavens, because again, I am reading it at the surface value. It looks like, okay, we have enough of life and consciousness on this planet. But outside of the planet, we don't see much. But if consciousness is so much valuable, and this is really the key for the love of God, which is the purpose of this existence, apparently, why not consciousness over there? It says there must be consciousness over there, which you can still apply to the particle as well, like the atom or the electron in there. You can apply it there too. But this is going to be a detail for now. Let's go with the obvious. So the author is saying that let's raise our head and look at the heavens again. And in our discussions, we keep using the heavens, the word sema, for two purposes, two meanings. But again, let's take it on the surface value. I look at the moon and I say, well, are there beings there which should be fulfilling this purpose of existence? Because really, consciousness changes the color of everything. And now I am saying that we are, people in this room are the only conscious beings. Why not? But why Creator wouldn't create consciousness everywhere if this really highlights the purpose of existence in the first place. Therefore, we say, yeah, there must exist consciousness over there as well. And actually, we are not the only people saying this. That's why there's Hubble telescope looking there and trying to listen to some signals and trying to expect some like space creatures to send messages to us and whatnot. Although they do not look at it from the perspective of a maker who created me and created this other being and whatnot, still the expectation to receive some messages there. Now, the author is saying that my maker, since he put this consciousness at the heart of things, would have created other conscious beings who would be aware and conscious of him. And also, we can interact with them as he made me interacting with my fish, my dog, and my human fellows. He's going to make me interact with them too. So it makes perfect sense. So now I am in expectation to have a conversation with these beings, which must exist as I do exist, and you guys exist in this room, which must exist. Now I'm in expectation to start a conversation with that being. So I'm not going to be surprised if I start hearing some messages. So I say, yeah, it makes perfect sense. There must exist such a message. Then if we take it to what this boils down to is, moon is inhabited by conscious beings. Particle also is inhabited by conscious beings. Stone is also inhabited by conscious beings. The whole existence is filled up with life and consciousness. This is what it takes to. In the initial level, let's apply to moon. It makes sense, right? But when you apply to moon, automatically it comes to the point that even this toy car or whatever you see must have a conscious dweller, let's put it this way. Because in Hadith, Rasulullah talks about tuyurun khudrun, as Nursi mentions, so green birds. And the dead people's spirits get into the green birds of paradise and fly in them. Or like, if I refer back to your Islamic school knowledge, you will say, oh, now it makes sense. So we talk about like Mikhail, we talk about Israfil. So Mikhail is the angel who is taking care of nature events. This is how we were taught about it. But what this really sounds like is there is an angel who is taking care of or responsible for that plant over there, that stone over here. So a conscious being who is, as much as I am a conscious being who is aware of what is going on in this existence, in this body, the stone has a body, bee has a body, fish has a body. So a conscious being becoming aware of it and getting to know its creator through those tools. This is called angel. Why is this important? What's at stake? This perspective fills the existence with life and consciousness. Like if I were entering in this room and thinking like, oh, like just a group of losers in here. And, I mean, like cultural people, and I'm here just to eat food. This is how many people come to MSA events, right? So yeah, there's good food in there. I have been to an MSA at Drexel MSA. This was 2014 or so. 2 atheists came to event and they asked some questions and whatnot. After the event, went and asked to the kids, like, what's up? They said, well, there's good food in here. That's why we came here. Like they were atheists. They already determined that Islam is just, it doesn't make any sense. And these are just losers here. They came there just to poke holes into the speaker's questions. In their eyes, the people in this gathering are like brainless, stupid people. They cannot think. And they were there only for good food. This is how we do. I came into this universe and I feel like, these are unconscious, non-living, stupid things. Like a stone, like a fish, you just eat them. Like you're not going to learn anything from a fish. It's not a conscious being who is going to tell you about your creator. But if you take it the other way around, now everything in this existence becomes a conscious being with whom you can have a conversation. And it's going to tell you about your maker. They're not losers. They're not stupid, brainless things. They're not unconscious. like this, if I take it as such, it sounds like an atheist going into a MSA event and saying that these guys don't know anything anyways. I'll just go and eat their free food. But if I take it the other way around and say that, no, everything in this existence must be conscious, and I can converse with them. If I come to this point, then they will start talking to me. As in the text, this is how it happens, right? Once he asks the question, then a heavenly voice started coming to him. Otherwise, like, what can you get if you are getting into this MSA event and you think that people in here are stupid? Even if they say the most wise words, what would you take out of them? Because your assumption is these are nonsense talkers. You will not get anything out of that. This is what is happening with our scientific endeavor. Because in our scientific endeavor, what do we do? These are unconscious nonsense beings. What can they say? I mean, because the point of life, the perspective is life is meaningless or pointless. Or at least we say that it's metaphysics. We are not interested in that. We do not look into that. So lack of belief in angels makes the existence meaningless. Belief in angels is giving me the opportunity to, like, fills up the existence with conscious, if you like, I mean, this came after what? Prophets, Asfiya, and Awliya. If you were to enter into a gathering like this, and you know that everybody in this room is an Awliya, what would you think? You would be careful. You will try to have a conversation with them meaningfully, saying that, oh, these are all learned people, so let me get something from them. Now we are entering a masjid, which is now universe, and every being is a conscious angel. And then you would, rather than trying to exploit them, this is what our industrial revolution perspective is. How can I exploit the universe? Rather than exploiting them, I would say, let me get into a conversation with them and learn about my maker from them. So this would be the perspective.
Explain the spirit part. Like the rocks don't really have a spirit, a ruh. So how does that actually fit in? Because that's actually part of it, that you need life, animate, and consciousness. So I don't understand, like, what does that?
So this is why I said initially we think stone doesn't have life or spirit. But after these stages, and when I say moon must have some dwellers in there, it might feel like a person is occupying this room, right? But when you think about your body is nothing but stone-like things, right? There's carbon, there's whatever. Like these are, if they were outside, we would say they are lifeless. Still, they are here. And I say, there's ruh in here. Mm-hmm. So ruh is not part of them, but it is there. So where is your ruh? If I ask you that question, you would say, well, I guess everywhere, right?
Okay.
So if you apply this to any stone now, you can say that there must exist a spirit in there, some sort of a spirit in there. I'm not expecting it to have an eye like this, because fish's eye is different than your eyes. A stone eye, some sort of an eye, some sort of a sense, if you like, with the existence. This is being my coming back after going all the way. Initially, I thought stone was lifeless and spiritless. Now I think, no, actually, stone was with life and was with a spirit as well. Actually, stone was also conscious. Like in the tongue of Sharia, now it's called angel. So initially, I thought it was lifeless. After this journey, I said, no, stone also has life. Because my description of life has changed now. My description of life is no more the biology's description of life. This is how I started, I agree. I started the journey with the biology's description of life. But when I'm coming back from this journey, I said, no, life is much more general than what was meant. And the stone must also have consciousness and life.
I don't know. I think I understand where you're coming from, but from the Islamic perspective, even angels don't have a ruh. So I don't understand, like, how I'm actually going to put these. It's kind of contradicting to me. Like, I don't understand, like, this angel and having a ruh in it. Like-
An angel is a ruh.
We
But-
say ruhani creatures, like
They have divine, they're made from divine, right? But they don't really have a soul,
So
a spirit. They don't have that,
They
right?
have life. So this is interesting what you just mentioned because in in theology they define life as it's a condition, right? So if you have it, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll have power, will, or something else. Life is just like perception, right? But if you do, you can't have power, will, or any of the other attributes that we have as humans. You can't have it if you don't have life. See what I mean? So angels, by that definition, angels are definitely alive in that sense because they can, but they might not have certain specific things that we have, right? One of the specific things that I think Nursi mentions is that human beings can understand all of the divine names, but angels are only able to sort of understand like specific divine names, right? Or like they have specific duties versus human beings who can like encompass all the duties. So yeah, it's not just say like, they are living creatures. Like life in the broad sense, not the biology. Oh, sorry, I wanted to add one more thing. I think I forgot who it was. Uh, one of the scientist people, I can't remember if it was Neil deGrasse Tyson or somebody else. He said like, with how much we know about the universe, it's ridiculous to believe in a God because we're the only people that are conscious, and billions and gazillions of light years is complete emptiness. So it makes no sense, right? So I feel like the angel question, like Neil deGrasse Tyson understood the angel question better than us, right? Because if the entire universe, like everything out there, is just complete emptiness, just stuff, just empty rooms, you would kind of be like, okay, if there is a God, why wouldn't he create conscious life? Like, why is this entire room just completely empty? So, yeah.
We had a comment from one of our online attendees. So Sister Sire says, perhaps all divine signs have angels embedded in them. I mean, she wrote this about 20 minutes ago. And perhaps all divine signs have angels embedded in them, and all angels are pointing to the divine attesting. From nature, species, earth's, and universe's phenomena to our very own consciousness being nudged by angels. Alive as spirits, they are not in need of mortal shells of bodies like us. Jazakallah khair. Any Sarah, take it away.
So I thought that like the whole journey, the traveler's journey is for him to first to get to know like there's a creator, and then now he's getting to know, like to know the creator, to interact, like the knowledge of his creator, and then like in the end to love the creator. So the idea is that we are interacting with this creation in order for us to know our creator. But like, I don't know, because we're saying like now the angels are also conscious beings that were created to praise and bear witness to this creation. But then the point is not for them also to know and believe in the creator and like have the love of God, because I don't know, is it like the same journey for them and us, like, interacting with the creation, getting to know their creator? Or is it something like the purpose of it is something else? Like what's the point? I mean, I don't see why, like, God created something and there's no conscious being to witness it. Why is that a big deal? Like, I mean, maybe it is a big deal, but like, I just don't understand. Like, the purpose here is different. Like, we're saying that we are interacting with the creation for us to know our creator, to know his divine names, right? But we're saying that there must be an angels because God created something and this something has to, to witness to it. It's just like the purpose of the two things is different. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
I'll say this, like we're told usually that angels are tasked with glorification, right? So anything in creation that is pointing me to my creator, right? Like the moon is just a rock in one sense, but the moment I interact with that quality of beauty, that quality of love or whatever else that you feel, right? There I'm in communication with the angels, right? That glorify the creator. Right. I just as they bear witness, through their bearing witness, I bear witness. Right. This is how I'm understanding it.
I kind of agree with the why is it a big deal question. But also I feel like this whole time we've been saying we shouldn't ask questions from God's perspective and we should just look at what we have access to and read that in the name of Allah. So it's not sitting right with me then that we're asking this question of, like, why would God make all these rooms with no one to witness them? It's none of our business. What's out there in the universe, who is witnessing it, whether or not there are things, whatever. Just look at, like, why can't we just look at what is around us, what is accessible to us, and read God through that name? And isn't it wrong to be like, oh, it isn't possible that God made this thing for it to not made this thing and it's going to waste? But like it doesn't matter. And it's not a question for us to answer. Who are we to talk about God's perspective like that? Maybe he did make things to be wasted. Why is it such a big deal?
We are speaking from our perspective in one sense, right? Because I can say, I see that in so much as I interact with creation, there's so much wisdom here, right? And I mean, we started here, we started with our responses to what we find precious as well, right? Human responses. So when I look at the world, when I look at the value of consciousness and how it takes me to my creator, then I can say, the one who exemplifies this wisdom cannot be part of that creation, right? Because waste occurs when there's a lack of qualities that I certainly see are not lacking in this world. And so just in terms of like the waste part, it took me because my life is about waste for the last 5 years, but and there's seen other parts of the Risala talks as well, that so if I rephrase it within my perspective, right, I see this creation, I see how I interact, how I come to know my creator, how coming to know my creator is critical to my belief, conviction, strengthening of my conviction in him and love of him, right? So then everything in this world must take me to my creator. And I see that it is through the quality of consciousness, in fact, that I am taken to him in the most direct way, right? That things bear witness. So it's less about, oh, well, whatever God does, he does, and more about what must be the case given that I witness that my creator has all of these qualities in the world, right? But I'm gonna give the mic to Brother Birkan, and we have about 4 minutes. Do you want to say something?
I guess it's all boils down, like when we say we believe in God, and it's important maybe not to use this proper name Allah for that reason. What do we really mean, like, with God? What am I believing in? That's the question. So if I'm believing in, let's say, a wasteful creator or not, so it makes sense to me. Like it's my business to come to such a understanding. Like it's not about imagining a God doing one thing or another, or doing it one way or another. The question is, am I experience any waste in the creation or not? From that, you can make this argument or not. I'm not talking about that. But when you say, so who cares, it is wasted or not? If this is the case, then that means you are believing in God who wastes, which has a direct implications in your life. So for instance, when you lose a child, you can say that, oh, God wasted my life. God just wasted this beauty. It was too early for her to die. It was wasted. So that's the God I believe in. So that's, I think, one part. Another part, so when the author talks about the life, it's interesting. It's not directly talking about the living things. He says life as an aspect of this creation. The life that I experience, right? It's the precious, not the living things, but it is precious. The life is precious. It starts from there and then talks about the ones that has ruh and so on and so forth. So the lively aspect of things that I experience are precious to me. Otherwise, it's not like a taxonomy. When Brother Yusuf was talking about the plants, animals, and so on, so it's just like a childish example to make it, more clearer. So otherwise, the living things are not, there are non-living things, stone, and then living things, plants, and then ones with the ruh, the animals, and the humans are zishur. Like, this is not about the biological taxonomy. It's about the things that I experience. So with you, for instance, I'm experiencing this aspect, which is inanimate, right? You maybe not a good example because it requires some making fun. So Yusuf, sorry for that. Yusuf has an inanimate aspect. When I look at his beautiful beard, and I say that, look at this, it's all dark, the black, and look at mine, it's white, right? And I'm getting, let's say, jealous of that. I'm looking at his inanimate aspect. And the value I get from that is limited. And then I look at the same thing, this creature, I say, but he's alive. This beard, right? Getting older as well for him as well. He needs some food and so on and so forth. Now I'm interacting with another aspect of the same creature. Now he's a lively thing. And then the same creature, I say, oh, he's a spirit. Meaning, at least within this context, to the extent I can understand, he has some connections with the rest of the creation. Right? He can think about the black holes. He can think about the empty space, whatever. This is the spirit. Having connections with the creation. Making sense of the creation and so on and so forth. Now I can interact with this aspect as well. And then the conscious aspect, he's aware of all these things. He's aware of me. So why it matters, whether things are conscious or not, again, from my perspective, if I look at this creature and only see this black beard, that's the extent I can interact with. And he can teach me about my creator to that extent. My creator sometimes creates white, sometimes creates black. That's the only thing I know. But if I interact with him from the life perspective, I interact with my creator in different way. And then the spirit, and then the consciousness, whatever. My interaction with my creator changes based on how I take him. The same thing applies to anything, like this bag. If I see it as Arsalan sees, it's just a bag, right? If it's a plastic, in Sharia, nobody says it has a ruh. If I take it this way, That's much, that much I can interact with it. And that much it can tell me about my creator. But when I see the aspect of it that is living, that has consciousness, my interaction with it will change. Like when we say the first question was, what God I'm believing, right? The second question is how I know, how I believe in this God. What interactions I have. We say we have to interact with the creation to know our creator. What interaction are you talking about? If this is just a bag, you can at most touch it and say that my creator creates something, shiny or whatever. That's the only thing you know, right? But you throw it and you say, I acted disrespectfully. Can you say that to the bag? You can. You know that deep inside. Because you know that you have this, the type of interaction with this bag, which doesn't like to be thrown, right? Just like a living being, a conscious being. Now I have another interaction with this bag, and know my creator, he doesn't like disrespectful actions, for instance, right? If I act unjustly to this toy, destroy it, I feel bad, don't I? I destroy it, I feel bad. Why? It's just a toy. It doesn't have spirit, does it? It doesn't have any consciousness. Why I feel bad? Is it because Ali will feel bad? No. Even if I didn't know who is the owner, if I destroy it, I will feel bad. Why? Because the lively, living, conscious creature telling me that my creator doesn't like injustice. Otherwise, it cannot tell me that. If I don't look at how I feel and so on, so the way I interact with this toy, I'm not, imposing anything from the external world. Like how I interact, this toy will tell you about your creator. So, like when we talk about the toy, maybe it makes sounds strange, but if I tell you that in 10 years, this artificial intelligence will have awareness of itself, would you say, this doesn't make sense? Or would you say, oh yeah, maybe it will? What is artificial intelligence? It's the silicon. It's just a few, the electronics. That's the artificial intelligence. And we can believe that it may, become aware of itself, whatever. I'm not saying that it will, but that the attitude we have, right? Why we say that? Because I can write something and it can reply to me. When I experience this, I say, oh yeah, there must be something living there, even if it's just a silicon. The same thing with this toy. You do something and a feeling is created in you. Two-way communication. You just don't classify it that way. Because in Sharia, nobody says it has room, the spirit. Or so we thought. Or so we thought, yes. Because in Sharia, they do say, everything has spirit and what. So, but anyway, so not the biological taxonomy, but the aspects of one thing that I interpret. And then it will be easier to understand that, yes, everything, even a moon, has these different aspects. Inanimate, animate, conscious.
I'm going to give the last comment to Brother Yusuf, but before I do so, I think this is also so beautifully exemplified when we look at narrations regarding like the Prophet ﷺ's interactions with objects that he owned, right? Whether it was his sandals or his bowl, just in terms of like, not in terms of acting, let's say, kindly with them, right? Or not just replacing them immediately, or even giving salam to them, right? Like I think if we study those narrations, they are also very helpful in revealing what it means to communicate with the angelic aspect of all things, brothers.
So this is 11th level. I was just looking back the previous levels. So let's say it was saying that the rivers invited him, saying, come and read our lines. And he heard them saying this with their tongue of disposition, for example. And then he looked and saw. So far, this was the traveler were observing things in them and finding the creator. Now at level 11, he says, actually, I was just taking it as a one-way communication, as if they were, with their tongue of disposition, they were saying something and I was arriving to a conclusion. When he comes to level 11, he says, actually, it could have been a two-way communication. From the very beginning, this is why at level 11, we went back to the heavens again. Level 1 was heavens. So we went back to heavens at level 11 again. What changed? Now he says, actually, since the very beginning, it could have been a two-way communication. I just read it so far as a one-way communication. They were saying something, but they were not aware of what they were saying. Like my watch. My watch is saying that right now it is 21:08. It doesn't know what it is saying, but I know what it says. This is my perception. When he comes to level 11, he says, no, every being is conscious of what they are representing as it refers to their creator. So having this way of communication with them. When I say this, this might sound like, oh, Yusuf, you're schizophrenic. Or at least, oh, Yusuf, if I go with what you say, shall I pretend as if this wall has a consciousness? Or when you enter home, Assalamu alaikum ya bayt. If I say this, I will feel offered. If these are being the communication going through yourself, we should double check them. Baby's crying. Okay. So just to repeat, because this is how I felt when I used to have this conversation. What this says is, like after Brother Birkan's comment, let's say, the toy, and you will say, Assalamu alaikum, toy. And you feel like, oh, make sure nobody's seeing me, otherwise they will think I'm crazy. Or will I pretend as if it has a consciousness? If I'm pretending, that means I'm not convinced yet. But per this conversation that's taking place, as Sister Shanur gave the example, Prophet I said was salam, giving salam to his belongings, or the famous narration about Mount Uhud loves us. We love Mount Uhud, and Mount Uhud loves us. Like a mountain, come on, like a stone loves you. What do you mean by that? So if we carefully now reevaluate those narrations, that means no, since the very beginning, there had been a conscious being in there. I was not just cognizant of it. It was my problem. It was not its problem. It was always talking, but I was not listening to it. So, because I had some friends, and I said, well, if I didn't know this guy is such a scholar, if I were to sit next to him in the New York subway, I would think he's a loser. But now that I know that he's such a deep person, now I sit before him and listen to his words. But if I were just passing by in the New York subway, which he uses subway, I would say, well, I'm just a loser, come on. So this is how we are treating the existence. We see them and we think that, well, it's just a stone. Like, I mean, what do you expect from a stone? What do you expect from a moon? What do you expect from a fish? Human being, yeah, we can have a conversation with a human being. Once, if I can reach such a conviction, then I will start hearing their heavenly voice. So,
on that note, I think we have lots to think about. So let's end here. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين. we can begin next week maybe with the 12th degree, but we can continue to talk about this topic as we continue forth, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.